day ever. We're in the third quarter, rocking, rolling, making great things happen like we always do. Now, a way that we measure this myotactic reflex or this reflex potentiation is we use this thing called an EMG. Now, when you do an EMG, it's a common research tool that's used to examine the magnitude of neural activation within the skeletal muscle. So whenever you do an EMG, you all of a sudden have all of these little probes on your body, and then they have you do a motion, and then they see which of those motor units are actually firing and which ones are still sitting on the sidelines. And so because we have done so many great studies with EMGs, we have learned a couple of interesting things. So come over to page 93 with me and let's learn a few things. All right. There was a great research study done, and I'm in the first actual full paragraph on page 93. And it reports that dramatic increases in neurological adaptations take place in 6 to 10 weeks of a program. Now, when you are working with a new client or a new athlete, and you have designed this wonderful program for them, you are going to see changes in 6 to 10 weeks. That is awesome. Now, I know that we've told you about Fab 5. What's number 5 in the Fab 5?
2 years.
Okay, but what we have to remember, it's that 2 years to where your endocrine system really taps in to make those changes. Not necessarily your nervous system. Your nervous system is saying, oh my gosh, you're giving me some sort of stimulus. I better get quicker across the neuromuscular junction because you're asking me to do something and my body will respond to whatever I ask it to. So let's just say that I decided that I wanted to be the 47-year-old female vertical jump champion of the world. So what better I start practicing? Vertical jumping. I really have to do that. And as a way to do that, I need to tap in to my reflex potentiation. But we also need to understand that in that 6 to 10 weeks, you're going to see, as we like to say, gains. You're going to see those changes take place. And when you see those changes take place, and this is what gets frustrating for many people, they see these changes take place in these 6 to 10 weeks, and then all of a sudden, they plateau. Oh, the plateau, the plateau, the plateau. So whenever you reach that plateau, that nervous system is simply saying, dude, this is your new norm. You got to bring it on a whole nother level and make me adapt to a new thing because this is what I now know is my normal. Which there are some people that say, maybe I should never start an exercise program if it's consistently going to have to get harder and my body's going to have to continually adapt. I think that's lazy. However, if we keep exposing our bodies to new and different things, they will keep responding to that different stimulus that we are exposing them to. So remember, with that whole thing about 2 years, that's not the nervous system. Because remember, of all the systems to arrive on the scene, which one's the first one? Nervous system. You can make some major neurological changes in 6 to 10 weeks. So that's why we got to tell people if they can stay with the program 6 to 10 weeks, have a deload. There's a reason that periodization is set up like that. Go hard 6 to 10 weeks. Have a deloading week so your nervous system kind of gets rested. And then start again in the rebuilding process. If you don't allow that deloading week, eventually this nervous system is going to say, I don't know what you're asking me to do anymore. It's going to be overstimulated, and an overstimulated nervous system leads to what? Overtraining. which that then all of a sudden, what is overtraining done to my endocrine system? You know this. It's made me catabolic instead of anabolic anymore. Which hormone is dominant when I am catabolic? Cortisol. So all of a sudden I have cut off my anabolic chain. What's in your anabolic chain? Testosterone, growth hormone, insulin-like growth factor, and insulin. So it all comes down to overstressing the nervous system. So if we can back off that, have a deload week, jump back in, we can see these changes. This is actually called your body is making accommodations. You know, they call it accommodations. I say your body will respond to whenever you ask it to. Your body continually adjusts to a new homeostasis. Remember, there's no place like homeostasis. So what happens is, and I think I used this analogy once, but it's worthy of hearing again. Let's just say when you were untrained, you were living in a crappy apartment. You remember this analogy? And then you started training more. And all of a sudden you were able to move into a nicer apartment. You started training more and all of a sudden you bought your first house. You started training and all of a sudden you bought a bigger house. And all of a sudden your body's new normal is this beautifully decorated, highly efficient and effective home that you have built. Your body operates exactly. It has high-speed internet. It has lights that dim. It can be motion activated. It can be video activated. It has all the latest things because that's what you trained your nervous system to do. Now, let's go back to the people that are untrained. I hate this. Go down to this thing and let's learn about cross-education. Now, whenever you think about, hey, tell me something right here. What is bilateral training? Training both sides of the body. What is unilateral training? Training one side of the body. Now, what we know is, there's this phenomenon called cross-education. And we see that whenever you contract a muscle on one side of the body, the muscle on the other side of the body can actually get about 22% of muscle activation. That's kind of cool, I think. This actually is fabulous for the rehab world to hear about. So let's just say you have an athlete that has an injured shoulder, and although their shoulder might be restrained, is there still a need for me to work the other shoulder? Yes, because of this whole thing with cross-education. You know, your brain is divided into two halves, your right and your left hemisphere, but there is some cross-reactivity. So here's my question. Let's just take an athlete that's had a shoulder reconstruction surgery, and they are basically immobilized for, a period of time, but yet I'm still encouraging this shoulder. Now, do I ever want this to be the time that I have a new overhead press dumbbell record going on this uninjured one? No. But what if I continued to move in full range of motion, overloaded this deltoid a little bit? If cross-education really works efficiently, at least these muscle fibers are still getting possibly 22% stimulation via the central nervous system. So if you're that athlete that's coming back, would you pick 22% or 0%? I'd pick 22% in a heartbeat. Because you know what, that at least shows me that I am not starting at ground zero. For those of you that have had exposure to athletes, when an athlete has to start back at ground zero, how is that athlete's mood? Not good. So then we're dealing with all the stuff in chapter 8. So they can't find the ideal performance state whenever they are in that zone of chronically being injured or coming back from a surgery. Now, here's another thing that we learned. It's called bilateral deficit. In untrained individuals, we actually see that the force produced when both limbs contract together is lower than the sum of the forces they produce when contracted unilaterally. I know that sounded like a lot of math, but let's talk about it. Joe Bubba has decided, man, I haven't done anything since high school. Today is my day. I'm going back to the gym. He wakes up, says today's the day. So he goes in, and of course, what is the first exercise that every Joe Bubba does when they walk into the gym? They do a bicep curl, which is stupid. Oh well, that's just a little personal. Okay, so he walks over and he grabs those, 30-pound dumbbells, and he's like, yeah, I still got it going on. I still got it going on. All the cheat swing and everything rocking right here. So here's the thing. So if he's doing 30s and 30s, he now goes over to the easy curl bar. And if he's doing 30s here and 30s here, common sense would tell Joe Bubba, you can do what amount with the easy curl bar? You can do 60. Can't do it when you're untrained. So he goes over to the easy curl bar. He's got it all racked up. And all of a sudden he's like, trying to make sure no one's watching him, right? Okay? So then all of a sudden, until he really starts using force, inertial force, the muscles cannot do it. It's one of those things where your brain says, this isn't going to happen. But that is in untrained individuals. Now let's talk about the greatness of being trained. Let's just say that someone who is trained and has already done their full back workout, maybe some chest, and there may be smart people, so they might want to do a little bit of auxiliary bicep work as an auxiliary, not the main part of your workout. Let's just say that they go through that same scenario and they're hammering a 30 here, hammering a 30 here. For some reason, they're really wanting to work biceps, so they actually do a different exercise. They go over to the easy curl bar, and all of a sudden, that person that's trained knows how to facilitate and recruit muscle units because they know how to selectively recruit. Remember from the first quarter? They know how to selectively recruit. So that trained individual can now load up 70 total pounds on that easy curl bar and make that happen. Once the body gets trained, it can do this so well, which means your force production goes what? Up. Your strength goes. Very nice. Your power goes up. Instead of getting slower, you're getting faster. The more you train, the more you will gain. So think about that. End of the third quarter, stop.